or visitor this morning, I can safely say that it was kind of a tickling thing. It really did tickle me that in full lockdown we should be sent a surveyor to check the house over, to survey the house. That kind of tickled my curiosity a little bit as to how does that work? Does the virus know that this person is going to be there and he's therefore immune from carrying things in and out of people's houses? Even with his PPE on? And this time, actually, he did wear overshoes, which was good. Didn't put them on until he came into the house, though. For me, it would have been better on the step outside. But there you go. That's just me. Possibly going back to my old days as a vet nurse, when I used to know how to do barrier nursing. Have you noticed also that particularly at the moment we're being kind of psychologically infused with bizarre things? Remember when we had like News at 10, particularly? And then at the very end you would have a nice little human interest story to counterbalance the gloom and doom or the excitement of the whichever political hee-haw that was going on at the time. There would be something nice and gently funny, quaint, maybe even twee, which is a wonderful world of words. Quaint, funny, twee. Twee particularly. I'm never quite sure what twee means. I'm not entirely sure it's not an insulting thing. I was once called it. Still haven't found out what it was. Maybe it's best not to know. But I'm thinking that the more bizarre things that we're being fed is actually taking our attention away from other things. And it's tickling part of our brains that are becoming more attuned and actually attuning for the bizarre, so that we can cast aspersions, so that we can look at it and go, well, that's just bloody weird. When actually what we've got going on is bizarre enough for anyone, really. But it's taking our attention away. It's tickling part of us that's going to allow us to either laugh at it, wonder at it, or be slightly disturbed by it. Which takes a kind of smoke and mirrors situation that goes on. Most of it's coming from across the pond, because they seem to have a eternal appetite for the bizarre and revel in it, which tickles me slightly too. But it's one of those things, isn't it, that we do like to see bizarre things, or what we consider to be bizarre. One man's bizarre is another man's absolutely finely normal, as is one woman's, or however you represent yourself. The bizarre is really just a quirk of our understanding of normality. As I said, weird is relative. So, relatively speaking, everything is really weird until it becomes known. We were watching the Enterprise thing, that first one with Archer in it this morning. Well, Andrew was watching. I just happened to be in the room at the time. And they were talking about micro singularities. And that kind of tickled me, because this was supposed to be in the 23rd or the 24th century or something. And here we are in the 21st century. We already know about micro singularities. They've been proven. So someone's imagination kind of was a little bit shortened at that point when that was written. It was only a few years ago. But they also said something that really tickled me about, the lack of research and knowledge. When they were stuck in this spaceship, or pod or something, one of those shuttlecraft things that they have, and they were talking about whether or not they should shave before they died because one of them wanted to have a good looking corpse. Thankfully didn't quote James Dean. And the other guy said, yeah, well, in my honours biology, he says, your hair keeps growing when you die. So you'll be bearded anyway. And I'm thinking to myself, now somebody didn't look at the research very well there, did they? Because it's the shrinkage and dehydration of the skin that actually allows the hair follicles to open and just allow the hair to be there. It doesn't actually grow, and it's like the nails as well. And the teeth, they say that your teeth grow and everything. Well, actually, as we know, long in the tooth means that your gums are receding. Doesn't mean your teeth are growing. Oh my goodness, long in the tooth. There's another tickler for you. How to get long in the tooth. But yeah, your fingernails don't grow, your cuticles actually shrink back. And we've known that for, eons, it seems like. So yeah. You see, this is why I don't watch these things. Particularly not with Andrew. I'm very critical of them. My inner judge comes riding out on its big white charger going, yes! This is it! You're wrong! You've got it wrong! You've made a mistake! How dare you go so far into the future and consider your limitations as they are right here and now? And that's funny, isn't it? We do tend to do that. We do tend to keep our limitations and just think forward within them. Limitations is a funny thing. It's like borders. We have borders. We have lines on maps. We have borders in skin and organs. We have borders in everything. We map out our territory. We map out what we are making as far as our boundaries are concerned. How dare you come into my boundary? How dare you encroach on my domain? I'm using that word a lot at the moment, encroach. I think it's a great word. I love words. I do. But the point of this is limitations. Because as we know from yesterday, we are still in Imbolc. Up until this evening, the wheel is still on the turn. Too much play school from an early age. So, we're still in the belly of the dream. We're still in the dreaming. We're still in the place where we can take those limitations and we can go, do you know what? I think I'm going to put an in front of you. Because I don't want to be behind this cage of limits. I don't want to have this border where I feel I can't cross. If I put my toe over, something really weird or bad is going to happen. Or I'm just going to not be myself. But surely there are parts of us that we don't really know until we are actually tested by putting our toes over that border. Isn't that the question? How we dream passes all borders of time, space, everything. As soon as we close our eyes at night, part of our brains switches into action and allows the conscious part to rest, because it does a lot of worrying and thinking and moving things around in our heads and arranging things and trying to keep diaries straight and all that stuff. And sometimes it overspills. It does encroach into the borders, into the territory of the sleeping mind. the universal mind that's waiting, like, excuse me, we have to do this so that we can fix all the things that you've made tired already. We have to go in there and do this, that, the other. Are you going to let me do this? Are you gonna go to sleep? And I don't know about you, but I have nights where that just doesn't happen. It's a case of being able to worry about not having anything to worry about is an art in itself. But that's within limits. That's because I think, personally, I'm bouncing up against my limits. And I'm looking at it, I'm going, what's going on? How do I choose to change this? How do I choose to stay where I am? And it is a choice. We don't understand it's a choice because we think it just is. That's us. We can only do this. But I know that I can go into different worlds. Not this body, but the spirit and soul within can travel. We all can travel. We all have this innate ability in our DNA to actually travel in time and space beyond it, because we do it every night when we dream. And even although you can't remember that you dreamt, you still did dream. The dreams that we most remember are the dreams that we have just before we wake. And sometimes when we're dreaming in the middle of the night, in that nice REM sleep that we're getting, and then it goes into full Disney on speed if we're lucky. I dream in colour. It's brilliant. But I know that some people dream in black and white, and I know at least one person who doesn't dream at all because they don't remember it. They have aphasia. And I can't remember what comes before the aphasia, but it means that they don't have an inner eye. They can't visualise things. So being told to imagine yourself in a garden full of just switches them off completely. Just makes them totally go, are you kidding me? Can't you say something else? Can you use different language? And that's a limitation of our response to the idea that everybody has an inner eye, that we can visualise things. Some people can't. And for me, that's a beautiful challenge, because I wonder, okay, how am I going to get you into that state where I can give you a guided tour of where I would like you to be, or where you could ultimately find yourself? Because it's not really about me, it's about you. Where you can go, where you can find an amazing space beyond your everyday limitations. I've often said that one of the best things about what I do is the sweeping up of the picking up of the jaws from the floor and putting them back into place again. Because particularly when I'm doing an introduction to shamanism, and people break through their limitations of, I don't know if I could do that. Oh, I don't know whether, not sure about that. Or, crap, rubbish. What do I want to do that for? Sometimes people do because their curiosity tickles them just a little bit. And they come along. And when they allow themselves, and this is it, because you're in total control. When one allows themselves to be open their heart, open their mind to the experience, there are so many wows. Really, it's amazing. And sometimes the wows are silent because they've lost the capacity to speak. They're in total shock. They just did that. There are occasions when some people say, you did that to me. And I say, no, I didn't do it, you did it. I just provided the space. I just provided the nuance of environment to allow you to allow yourself to go there. So when we think about limitations, particularly when we're thinking about being Imbolc in the belly of the dream, then perhaps it would be nice, particularly today, to put down some goals and aspirations. Now remember, word them very carefully, very, very carefully, because spirit and your universal mind takes things quite literally. So be succinct, but be clear. Well, to explain, it's a bit like the dangers of asking wishes from fairies, the fae. You'll say it one way, or a genie even. You'll say it one way, thinking that, you're assuming that the being that you're asking this of is totally on board with how you're feeling and what your imagination is, what your thinking is behind all this, what your desire is behind all this. But they know they can take it any way that they want to. And sometimes, just to be a teeny bit wicked, just so that they can tickle their own amusement, they'll take it away that you never thought was possible. Because, you just don't. You think a wish is a wish. So when you're dreaming, this is why, when you're making goals, when you're making your aspirations, when you're manifesting your life that's going to come very shortly, because you're manifesting really well now, aren't you? When you're doing that, you must feel it and really be in it. Describe it to yourself. Because remember, when you're actually describing things and you're in there, you can get the feeling of being there. As we talked about, the brain doesn't make a definition between memory and dream. So you're remembering. You're making this thing that you want a reality in your mind, but with your whole being behind it. And you're taking your limitations and you're putting your limitations in a little limitations box and you're putting it off to the side. You can always go back there if you want. Many people do. But I wonder how it would be if you let loose with your desires and dreams today, up until this evening, wrote it all down in as much detail as you possibly could. You can make lists if you want to. If you're not a kind of story writer type person, if you don't journal in prose, make a list. Put your thoughts and feelings behind it. Because then you'll really understand what it is that you want. When you look at that list, you can maybe cross things off, put more things in instead. So tickle your curiosity a little bit today. Box up your limitations, because you can. Get rid of some of the ones that you don't need anymore. And be a little bit brave. Remember, in the dreaming, you have the power. Always. See you later.